Welcome to the story. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and support me. The squad sat silently in the briefing room, the hum of the ship's engines barely audible under the tension that filled the air. Captain Rachel Blake scanned the faces of her team, knowing that each one of them had volunteered for what was essentially a suicide mission. She had led them through hell before, but this mission was different. This wasn't just a covert op to disrupt the enemy. It was a direct assault on the heart of the alien empire, an empire that had ruled with an iron fist for centuries. The Galactic Coalition had sent them to do the impossible: infiltrate the alien capital, dismantle the command system, and bring the empire to its knees. It sounded straightforward on paper, but every member of the squad knew the odds. Still, no one had flinched when she asked for volunteers. That was what made them the best. "We'll be in range in 15 minutes, said Victor, the team's tech specialist, his voice breaking the silence. His fingers moved across the console as he checked and rechecked the stealth systems. "This ship's modded to the teeth, but once we get inside their territory, every second counts. One mistake, and we're toast." Rachel nodded, her expression calm but her eyes sharp. "We're not here for mistakes. We all know the mission: get in, plant the charges, destroy their command system, and get out. This is our shot to end the war. Or die trying." Lena, the squad's hacker, muttered under her breath. Rachel didn't acknowledge the comment, but everyone knew she had heard. They all understood the stakes. But if there was any team that could pull off the impossible, it was them. The alien empire's control over the galaxy was near absolute, their forces nearly unbeatable. Nearly. The humans had learned that the empire had a vulnerability: a single command system that regulated their entire military network, including their psychic commanders who could crush any resistance with just a thought. Without that system, the empire's soldiers, drones, and AI units would be left in chaos. 10 minutes to drop zone, Victor announced. Rachel stood, adjusting the straps of her combat gear. "Final check, people. We get in fast and we get out faster." The squad rose in unison, moving with the precision of seasoned soldiers. Each of them was the best in their field, and together they formed an unstoppable force. At least, that's what Rachel had to believe. If she let herself think about the odds, she wouldn't be able to lead them. The stealth ship glided through the black void of space, undetectable by the alien sensors thanks to Victor's engineering genius. Rachel kept her eyes on the alien capital as it grew larger on the view screen. It was a sprawling city, a mix of organic and synthetic structures, pulsating with an eerie glow that signaled its immense power. They breached the perimeter undetected, slipping through the first wave of defenses. Victor's modifications had worked, but they were far from safe. The real test would come once they landed and began their infiltration. "Landing sequence initiated," Victor said, his voice steady but tense. The ship touched down in a secluded docking bay on the outskirts of the city. The moment they disembarked, the air felt heavier, as if the very atmosphere of the alien world was trying to press them into the ground. The city loomed above them, its structures seemingly alive, twisting and pulsing with an energy that was distinctly foreign. "Stay close," Rachel ordered, her voice low. "We have 30 minutes to get to the command center, plant the charges, and get out. Move." They navigated the narrow streets with the skill of seasoned operatives, avoiding patrols and security drones. Lena hacked into the city's surveillance system, creating a blind spot for them to move through. Her fingers flew across her tablet, her face illuminated by the faint glow of the screen. 3 blocks to the command center," she whispered. "We're in the clear for now." But Rachel knew better than to relax. The alien empire didn't survive for centuries by being careless. As they approached the command center, a massive structure with jagged spires that seemed to pierce the sky, Rachel felt the familiar tension coil in her chest. This was it. They were about to face the hardest part of the mission. The command center was heavily guarded, but Lena had managed to disable some of the external defenses. They slipped inside through a maintenance tunnel, emerging in a dark, cavernous room filled with strange, humming machinery. It was cold, the air almost sterile, and the walls were lined with panels that pulsed with an otherworldly energy. Victor set to work immediately, pulling out the charges and placing them along the central control consoles. Rachel kept watch, her senses on high alert. The silence in the room was suffocating, but they all knew it wouldn't last. "Charges are set," Victor said, his voice tight with focus. "Good. Lena, start the hack," Rachel ordered. Lena connected her tablet to the command system, her eyes narrowing as she worked to bypass the layers of encryption. It was more complex than they had anticipated, but Lena was the best. She could hack into anything, given enough time. "We've got incoming," said Paul, the team's sniper, his voice crackling through the comms. He was stationed outside, providing overwatch. 2 squads, heavily armed. "They're heading your way." "Damn it," Rachel muttered. "We need more time." Lena's fingers moved faster. "I'm almost there. Just give me a minute." Rachel signaled to the rest of the team to take defensive positions. They didn't have the firepower to hold off an entire alien squad for long, but they didn't need to. All they had to do was buy enough time for Lena to complete the hack and trigger the charges. The first wave of aliens burst through the door, their weapons glowing with energy. Rachel fired, dropping the lead alien before it could take a shot. The rest of the team followed suit, their movements precise, their aim deadly. But the aliens were relentless, their numbers overwhelming. "Lena!" Rachel shouted as she ducked behind a console, narrowly avoiding a blast of energy. "Almost there." Lena's voice was strained. "Done." She slammed her hand on the tablet, and the system went dark. The charges were live, and they had less than 5 minutes to get out before the entire command center was vaporized. "Move, move, move." Rachel barked, firing one last shot before retreating toward the exit. The team fought their way through the remaining aliens, their movements efficient despite the chaos. They made it back to the maintenance tunnel just as the first explosion rocked the building. Rachel felt the heat of the blast at her back as they sprinted for the ship. The command center erupted in a massive fireball, sending debris raining down around them. The force of the explosion knocked them off their feet, but they scrambled up quickly, the instinct for survival overriding the pain. "Get to the ship!" Rachel shouted. They piled into the stealth ship just as another explosion rocked the ground beneath them. Victor fired up the engines, and the ship roared to life, lifting off as the command center collapsed in on itself. "We did it," Lena breathed, collapsing into her seat, her face pale but triumphant. Rachel didn't respond. She was too busy watching the alien capital city crumble on the view screen. The mission had been a success, but it hadn't come without a price. Victor, at the controls, glanced over at her. "What now, Captain?" Rachel stared at the collapsing city, the weight of their victory heavy on her shoulders. "Now we go home." The alien empire had been crippled. Their command system was destroyed, their forces in disarray. Humanity had struck a blow that the aliens would never recover from. But as Rachel sat back in her seat, the faces of the fallen flashed before her eyes. Victory had come at a cost, and it was a cost that would haunt her for the rest of her life. As the stealth ship slipped into the black void of space, Rachel allowed herself a moment of quiet reflection. They had done the impossible. They had shown the galaxy the true power of the human spirit. But even in victory, the weight of their sacrifice would never fade. The stealth ship glided through the dark, cold expanse of space, leaving the shattered remains of the alien capital behind. The mission had been a success, but the weight of it hung in the air like a thick fog. Inside the cabin, the survivors sat in silence, each of them processing the events that had just unfolded. The adrenaline had faded, leaving only the grim reality of what they had done, and what it had cost. Rachel Blake stared out the viewport, her gaze distant. The alien empire, a force that had dominated the galaxy for centuries, was now in ruins. Their command system, the backbone of their military, was gone, leaving their forces scattered and leaderless. For humanity, it was a monumental victory. But for Rachel and her team, it was more complicated than that. Victory had come at a steep price, and while the galaxy would celebrate their success, the faces of those they had lost would linger with them. Victor, the tech specialist, sat at the controls, his hands steady as he piloted the ship away from the devastation. He had been quiet since their escape, his usual banter replaced by a solemn focus on the task at hand. He glanced over at Rachel, breaking the silence. "We're clear of the blast radius. No sign of pursuit. We should be in the clear." Rachel nodded, her expression unreadable. "Good. Keep us off their radar until we're back in friendly space." Lena, slouched in her seat, let out a long breath. "I can't believe we actually did it." Her voice was heavy with disbelief, as if she still couldn't fully grasp the magnitude of their accomplishment. "We just took down the heart of the Empire." Rachel didn't respond immediately. Instead, she leaned forward, resting her elbows on her knees, her hands clasped together. "We did," she said finally, her voice low. "But we lost good people to do it." There was a brief silence as the team absorbed her words. Paul, the sniper, shifted in his seat, his face etched with the exhaustion that only came after a battle like the one they had just fought. "They knew what they were signing up for," he said quietly. "We all did." Rachel looked up at him, her gaze steady. "That doesn't make it any easier." Paul nodded, his eyes dropping to the floor. The truth was, no matter how many missions they had been on, no matter how many victories they had won, the losses always weighed on them. This mission, in particular, had been the most dangerous, the most uncertain. And while they had succeeded, they had done so at a cost none of them could fully measure yet. Victor broke the silence again, his voice quiet but firm. "They didn't die for nothing. The Empire's in chaos now. Their forces are cut off, and they can't regroup. We just changed the balance of power in the galaxy." Rachel nodded, though her mind was still elsewhere. Victor was right. The mission had been about more than just survival. It had been about sending a message, not just to the aliens, but to the entire galaxy. Humanity had been underestimated for too long, seen as a minor player in the vast cosmic stage. But now, they had shown what they were capable of. They had struck at the very heart of the most powerful empire in the galaxy and lived to tell the tale, but the cost still hung over her. She could still see the faces of those who hadn't made it back. Good soldiers, brave men and women who had believed in the mission as much as she had. Their sacrifices had made this victory possible, but that didn't lessen the sting of their absence. "We'll need to report to command as soon as we're back," Rachel said, shifting gears. "They'll want a full debrief." And I'm sure the coalition is already preparing their next move. Lena snorted softly. Yeah, because they're going to want to capitalize on this while the Empire's still reeling. Rachel's expression hardened. Exactly. The Empire's command system is gone, but that doesn't mean their forces are going to roll over and surrender. They're going to fight, and we need to be ready for whatever comes next. Paul raised an eyebrow. You think the coalition's going to push for an all-out assault? Rachel shrugged, her mind already spinning with possibilities. They might. The Empire's vulnerable right now, but they're still dangerous. And there are other factions in the galaxy that could take advantage of the power vacuum. We need to be smart about our next steps. Victor let out a low whistle. Sounds like things are about to get messy. Rachel didn't disagree. The fall of the alien empire was just the beginning. With their command system destroyed, their forces would be disorganized, but that also meant they would be unpredictable. And unpredictable enemies were often the most dangerous. We need to stay sharp, she said, her tone commanding. This isn't over. Not by a long shot. The team nodded, their expressions grim but resolute. They had just survived the impossible, but Rachel knew better than to let her guard down. The galaxy was a dangerous place, and the collapse of the alien empire would send shockwaves throughout the cosmos. Other powers would rise, and new conflicts would emerge. But for now, they had done their part. As the ship sped through the void, Rachel allowed herself a moment of quiet. She thought of the team members they had lost, the sacrifices they had made to get this far. It was their victory too, even if they wouldn't be around to see the fruits of their labor. Rachel closed her eyes, letting the hum of the ship's engines lull her into a brief moment of peace. They had done what they set out to do. They had shown the galaxy the strength of humanity, the power of their spirit and resilience. It was a victory that would be remembered for generations to come, but the war wasn't over yet.